Welcome, data enthusiasts. I'm Joseph from Zuma, and this is our podcast, Data for Good. Here at Zuma, we're a dedicated recruitment company for senior data, insights, analytics, and engineering professionals, connecting you with Berlin's most influential and innovative companies. Today, I am thankfully, joined by Rodolpho Cavalcanti, Senior Manager of Product Analytics at Delivery Hero, headquartered in Berlin, of course. Rodolpho, we've been skipping and missing each other. Today, we're finally here. We don't need to go into the details, but I'm very grateful that we have made it today. How's it going? How are you feeling?
No, thank you, Joseph, for having me. It's a pleasure to finally make this conversation happen for all the data enthusiasts out there. Things are going good. We had the first sight of snow in Berlin today. My little one was super happy to see it. So
for the first time?
Yeah, he saw it for the first time. He's 2. So I brought him out. I didn't take him outside. I brought some snow in on my hand, and he was like, cold. So it was a good start in the weekend. And this is going to be the perfect way to wrap up the week and jump into the weekend. So very much looking forward to it.
Beautiful. And today we, as I understand on the podcast, you've told me that we'll be talking about a passion area of yours in the world of product analytics, being specifically the process delivery of product analytics. And whilst I'm very excited to get into that, to give the audience a bit of context, please tell me, how did you, as a senior professional now, how did you first connect your kind of passion to data?
It's a long but not so long story. I think I first got interested in the world of data and analytics at university. I graduated in electric engineering with a focus on control systems and electronics, and there I had a course on stochastic processes, which is basically the study of random variables and random processes, and that's where I came in touch with statistics and how that can be used to solve the most diverse problems in technology and in business, right? From information theory, how do you transmit information through electromagnetic waves, through, how do you optimize resource allocation in a supply chain. I didn't start my career there. I started out in IT, and digital transformation happened. I would say back in 2015, it was a big topic. A lot of companies, and the one I worked for, which was General Electric, were moving their infrastructure to the cloud. Private clouds, mostly, but still. And one of my first projects was to sunset a data center from Brazil and migrate all the databases to our new COE in Georgia, in the US. And that's when I really started to get in touch with databases and the requirements around business intelligence specifically, because if you're sunsetting the system and the database and moving it abroad, what do you retain for regulatory purposes, for business performance monitoring purposes? How do you do that? How do you interact with your stakeholders? And that was, I think, the most technical introduction that I had. And that's what kickstarted it all. Like from there to creating data visualizations, solutions. The first pipelines we had, the company in Latin America back then with another 2 colleagues of mine. Still all very rough, right? It was 2015, 2016. So Windows servers running MySQL databases and Java-based tools like Talent to do the ETL when not done by hand, aggregating Excel files. Not that Excel has disappeared today. It's still one of the most used databases and data processing tools. We got to say that. But yeah, and then finally diving deeper into the world of analytics itself in 2019 here in Berlin, because there was a moment in my career between 2017 and 2019 where I heavily focused on product management itself. So I worked as a product manager 2.5, almost 3 years, and then went full spectrum into analytics since 2019.
Interesting.
So here I am today.
Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. Software products or data products?
Been doing a bit of both. So building the data products that can power software products. I think it's one way of putting it. And today, more specifically, as a product analytics manager for Delivery Hero, we are responsible for everything that powers our product development, in sense of how can we learn what works, how can we learn about our customer behaviors, how do we connect qualitative and quantitative learnings to drive a product strategy, how do we set up the necessary infrastructure to gather as much data as we can, but at the same time as few data as required, right? We only want the data that we need to use to make the right decisions, but we also don't want to put our customers into any position that they have to share whatever is not necessary to us. So understanding the track needs and requirements, going through everything from communicating and preparing the decision-making process to guide the product strategy. That's today, I think, the way we frame our scope of work as product analytics.
Fascinating. And I see the connection between your life career story and where you are now. It's funny you cast your mind back to 2015, 2016, because I was in New Zealand recruiting software development at that time. And I remember a lot of the projects the recruitment projects we were going through were all about digitization and digital transformation.
It is. It's still around. It's still around. Digital transformation hasn't gone anywhere, and it also has been around for quite some time, right? I recently finalized my MBA, and I remember we were studying technological change in one of the courses. And I believe it was an article from Michael Porter, which is one of the most influential business authors and researchers from the late 70s, in which he already was discussing the transformational power that technology can have on business performance and value delivery to customers, right? Of course, mostly focused on manufacturing, but 40 years later, 50 years later, it feels like not a lot has changed. We still discuss how technology will continue to power and empower businesses to deliver value in different forms, of course, but still, a lot has changed, but not a lot has changed at the same time.
So to go into the topic for today, focusing around product analytics delivery, I also see your connection there. You talked a lot about processes, you talked a lot about optimization of systems and products. Given your product analytics leadership background, I'm curious to know whether we're talking about your work with Delivery Hero or generally, what product delivery methodologies do you subscribe to?
I think the big word in the market in the last 20 to 30 years has definitely been agile, right? It has all started with the Agile Manifesto in the early 90s, which involved merge with the Agile Manifesto with the Japanese delivery methods for manufacturing, right, which gave birth to all the lean startup that companies abide to. And I would say that currently there's still that this methodology is in place. We still abide by Scrum, by Kanban in some teams, and it all comes together in this patchwork of goals. And product and analytics have become a key part on this, right? We got to remember that when we talk about the delivery methods of analytics and how it fits into the product development lifecycle, we also need to think how the role of data and analytics has changed in these organizations that are building things, right? No matter if you're building a jet engine or a MRI machine, or like we do a food delivery platform, or an anything delivery platform, as we like to call it, the role of data plays now is very different. And at this point, every organization that I have been in contact with, worked for, or learned from my peers, they are learning how to get it together, right? The same way we see that the software engineering areas, they have matured a lot through this because they have been put in the focus. Software engineering was put in the focus in the last 20, 30 years of, okay, you're the power that is making the products happen. And were given the time and the research, and the academia also focus a lot in figuring out, okay, how to best deliver. We see, for example, when we talk about the DevOps change that came up, and then the Accelerate metrics focusing on quality, maturity, and delivery of software, all that came from academia, right? It was Accelerate is a PhD thesis that someone wrote about how to best deliver software. And in that context, data and analytics haven't gone through that process yet. So we're still very much tied to how software is developed, but somehow we data analytics organizations, they leverage some of those practices, but they don't have practices on their own. And when you look at specifically, so broader, the product development teams, they still follow much what is defined by the software engineering community. So the software engineering community now applies a lot of domain-driven design, and that becomes the way that organizations shape their own teams, right? You do you conduct the domain analysis, you see where you find common topics, you group them together because your end goal is to build the software that best represents that. Or you want to build a software that maybe breaks some of those walls, giving autonomy, giving agility, giving speed, giving quality to that what you're building. And this has been driven by software as the motor of product development. As much as data starts, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, so that's often the case with a SaaS business, a software product-based business. Do you think that's also the case with manufacturing businesses that might just use some tech? They are following software delivery processes.
Yes, because
Right.
software has become an integral part, right? When you look at automotive industry, for example, the automotive industry is today powered by software and connectivity. I think it's impossible to build a car today only with mechanical pieces. You need hundreds, thousands of patents, most of them related to software and connected services, so that you can actually build the cars that we drive or that we sit on today. So the delivery methods that come from the software community, they are spread across all the different industries and areas. And analytics and data, they still follow by that, right? We are immersed in that, and we tend to follow through or to participate into that. So when we talk about how analytics gets delivered, it gets delivered as an integral part of the product and software development process, because we are using data to power these decisions. We're using data to power the concepts and the designs that lead to the final product, be what it may, a hardware piece or a SaaS product or a marketplace, right, online. All of that comes together in a way that is almost impossible to then differentiate where is the data, what is the software, what is the product management, because it all comes together into one single delivery method. Cool. It's important to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. There's lots of information for me to take in, so I want to make sure I'm taking it in all. And with the kind of flow and angle you're putting on this, particularly with software development delivery processes being front and center to how we deliver anything, do you think that should apply to delivering data as a product, data processes, any kind of data project? Do you think that our now tried and trusted Agile Scrum or Kanban, should be the way we deliver data?
In a short answer, no, I don't think so. I think we are still learning what works in this world where data is becoming more of the centerpiece of what we move, right? We see artificial intelligence playing a bigger role. I wouldn't say artificial intelligence, let's say machine learning. I'm not a big fan of artificial intelligence as a term. Don't think we're quite close to that yet, but that may be a different podcast. But machine learning.
See you next time.
Let's say, data-powered applications, data-intensive applications that make autonomous decisions or make recommendations, they become so ubiquitous, that they are becoming the centerpiece. And the software is how you arrive at that value through data now, right? Which before used to be, you build software so you can achieve interactions, so you can enable interactions. And now you're building software that feeds into data and generates data to reinforce some sort of loop that we consume data to generate these recommendations and these improved interactions or these improved results, and we generate further data that we intend to use back and feedback into our own system. In that scenario, the software development practices that are now, as you said, well established and proved, they have started to show some cracks, and that's how we see companies that start to focus more on extreme programming practices, like mobbing, like getting rid of estimates at all, because the levels of uncertainty that the companies and software teams or product development teams are working now is much higher. So estimating becomes, as much as it is a business need, is as good as saying maybe next week, maybe in 2 quarters. And we see a lot of strong companies already abiding by these practices of mobbing. People don't work alone anymore. We need more people working together, and generally other extreme programming practices from software as well. So how data comes into that, how analytics teams start to participate, and what framework of what this product delivery framework of the future will look like, that is under construction, right? And that is under construction. I think the best companies and the best professionals right now in the field, they are the ones who don't take it for granted, who also are humble enough to say, we are trying to figure it out. Like, we work with Scrum, but at the same time, we give opportunities for different delivery methods to be tested, to be experimented on, so we can learn what works for our business. Not every business is very common that we hear. Every business for some time now has been said they are organized according to the Spotify model, or applying SAFe to their agile processes. We see certifications pop here and there, but all of what that does is to remove the authenticity of each different company and business that has been built, right? Because it tries to put them, okay, any business can operate successfully if they operate like this. It takes away all the details, all the different ways that customers interact differently with different brands and products. So companies right now that are they are taking a step back and rethinking, okay, cool, let's follow the Scrum model, let's work in sprints, let's have some rituals, but let's create room for mobbing. Let's see how much more we can deliver in terms of value. Let's work more integrated. Let's make UX research not a consultancy that we go to when we have questions, but an integral part of the development process in which we get their inputs and we see what changes our perspective when we consider that. Let's consider data not just as a byproduct of the software, but let's use data by design. So what we want to do with the data that we generate, and what data do we need in order to make the software flow. And all of this put together in a way that some days it feels like chaos, some days it feels like a storm. So it's and some days it's quite calm, but it's definitely a huge learning adventure to be able to number one, observe these changes as they happen, and at the same time be part of them, right? For example, with my team, when I'm discussing, and just this week this was a topic, what does it mean to have operational excellence for analytics, right? Can we go beyond just the delivery of analytical products or analytical results into delivering analytical frameworks to the company, and making, how do we define quality for analytics around this block, right? Can and should we be taking care of that to make sure that we conduct experiments under a solid playbook, that we consume and generate tracking data under trustworthy conditions, right? The same way that we have tools today to monitor the performance of software, a lot of those has been created as well to test data, right? To verify your data as it's being generated, consumed, etc. So operational excellence, which is a topic that we'll mostly talk about in the Lean community, in the manufacturing, and very recently also in software development, it's making its way also into the data and analytics organizations as the role of the organization, the professionals change. A data analyst, for those listening who are interested in the job, can not only be the person that is statistics, the magician, or a SQL master, or who can do amazing things in Python or Tableau. Abstracting the thinking about how the data is going to be consumed, what decisions are we trying to make, and thinking about that in advance so that you can really define what concepts are we trying to bring into the table as analytics, and say, okay, cool, what are the successes of our initiative when trying to build this product? What makes this product successful? But what makes the process of creating the product successful as well? So understanding quality concepts, understanding operational concepts, and generalizing those, standardizing those, the same way that, as I mentioned before, has happened and is happening to the software community in the last 20, 30 years, it's taking its shape also within the data and analytics communities, in my perception, over the last, I would say, 5 years as well, and will continue to do so in the near future.
Interesting, very interesting. So from my experience, yes, we see a lot of companies following SAFe or something very similar, or the Spotify model, which is now being banded around for what, 4, 5, 6 years? Okay. And you're suggesting that companies, instead of following this and when it doesn't fit their needs, blaming Agile, what they should actually do, or leaders should actually do, is firstly, stay humble, keep an open mind, consider other ways, or actually considering data. Use the data you need to make the software flow, and following the data by design approach, and also keeping an open mind to an old favorite of operational excellence.
Yeah, definitely. I think the organizations and professionals involved in building anything, be it powered by data or not, right? I think that having critical thinking and making the self-assessment as frequent as possible to think, okay, the model that I'm operating right now, does it really represent the type of value that I'm trying to generate? You know, am I just trying to fit into the market right now and not really solving the problems that I am supposed to be solving? And I want to believe that the best professionals and organizations will be those that will continue to try. And the key word here is trying to learn and adapt, you know, through critical thinking and self-assessment. So, okay, cool. My organization right now, or my team, used to operate like this. That's how a data analyst or a product analyst or a product manager used to operate 3 to 5 years ago. Those were the expectations. But now some companies require their product managers to be almost also product analysts, and the product analysts should be in a position to make product management recommendations. So the roles, they also start to amalgamate to some degree. And we need to be critical about this. I can't say the word critical enough, in the sense of reflecting, right? There is a lot out there, that will try to push companies and professionals in one way or the other into maybe too much specialization or too much abstraction. And a lot of what is sold out there as best practices and how-tos and path to success, we know it's clickbait, right? It's clickbait. It's traffic generation strategies for that may end up hurting a company or a career more than actually helping, because you're trying to fit yourself into a model or into a role or into something that is going to be long deprecated in a couple of years. So that can cost companies and professionals a lot.
Yeah, I had thought that this mold or this model that companies are trying to fit into is based on software delivery culture. And I wonder whether this new age of analytics culture can help to improve current delivery processes, as opposed to the now old way of delivering, which is software development. What are your thoughts on spreading an analytics culture across the business? We talk of hardware earlier, not necessarily software products. What do you think about that?
Analytics culture is, before anything, as I have learned, right, and this is a very personal definition, it's a culture of skepticism. It's a culture of not of second guessing and being doubtful of others, but of questioning your own work in a way that say, okay, cool, that's how can I be sure of this? How much more should I explore, or how much more should I exploit what I currently have? And how do I make sure that I'm looking at the right things? The more we this is actually one of the pitfalls I meant about the clickbaits, right? We see a lot of word out there about being scientific in business, applying the scientific method to organizations. Unfortunately, what we also see in practice is that keyword or buzzwords jump into the organizations, and there is no time to actually clarify. So, there is a book that is very interesting on the topic. It's called "Calling Bullshit" by Carl Bagstrom, which I definitely recommend any analytics data or leadership practitioner to read. And he actually covers a lot about how misinformation in business and life actually happens. And there's a bunch of research that he has conducted and gathered that shows that once misinformation has spread, it's impossible to dial it back. Misinformation spreads much faster than the right information.
Bad news travels faster than good news.
Exactly. And once this, for example, scientific method has found its place in business, and we see it grow and grow and grow, but we don't actually see the understanding of the scientific method, or again, how to think critically about what it means for my organization to develop products in a scientific way. The analytics culture is exactly this, right? It's just, okay, this is what we're trying to achieve. How do we get there? What do we need to know? What is missing? How much risk can we take? What does risk in our case mean? What are we expected to get out of it? And is it even worth pursuing? And this is the analytics culture, not necessarily related to the delivery process that we're going to get to, because that, as I said, I think it's going to amalgamate with the software development practices as much as we see data engineering being now about building software that processes data at scale. Analytics engineering, now a new function, that has been around for maybe 3 years. That is the combination of two roles: someone with a strong business acumen, but the technical skills as well to create data products consumable by analytics teams, distributed models, all of these. That is software based but data driven will force a new delivery culture for products as a whole that I cannot define yet, but I believe it carries the characteristics of being truly agile in the sense that we are managing risks, we are focusing on value, and we are very clear on the decisions and on the concepts that we want to pursue from the start, right? We keep exploring, but with some strong foundation. So we know that data will guide us, but we know which decisions we will make beforehand. The data will just point you in a direction. It won't define it entirely. And it will be part of the process to understand the data you consume, the data you generate, how it will combine with software. So it's still, I think, as I see, my own ideas are still forming around this. And as I believe that the entire area of product delivery, or modern product delivery, or next stage product delivery, or I don't know, product delivery 4.0, as it has been put in the industry 4.0.
Which will continue, yeah.
Exactly.
Which will continue to evolve. Interesting you say that about analytics culture. We work with a lot of data scientists, and always, of course, the science behind data science, it's always about questioning things and taking that approach, which I haven't actually seen across software development. We build things based on a framework, and if that works, quote unquote, then we continue to deliver in that way. I did want to push you a little bit on, of course, where you see the future of analytics teams. You've given us a hint there about analytics engineering, of which we've just started to work on recruitment projects for, and we've not worked on before. So it's great that they're seeing value to businesses. But yeah, if I can push you, or if you have any other ideas about what future of analytics teams look like in terms of their value to business.
I think the analytics teams, they will be the teams who ask the uncomfortable questions. They will more and more become the devil advocates of the product delivery cycle.
What do you mean by the uncomfortable questions? Are you referring to like a business analyst who's trying to understand how a user derives value from something? They might dig deeper and deeper and deeper, or do you mean something a little bit more controversial than that?
I mean both, right? I think that the one is going to get the first one to describe the business analysis or the product analysis that will get more and more help from technology. We see business process management tools, data mining or process mining tools coming up very strongly, and it's only a matter of time until they make their way not only into how we pay our invoices, or how do we procure recruitment services or any kind of service, to how do we build software and products. Once you start analyzing the Jira flows, the Asana flows of teams, it's only a matter of time until the companies that we have doing that make their way into that space. So the business analyst role will also change in that extent. And when it comes to the controversial side, it will be really about, okay, how much do we understand about what we are trying to do? Are we really going after the benefit that we believe we can realize? Did we even realize the benefit we set out to realize? Right? Do we have all the information necessary to make this decision? And the reason I say that is because also when it comes to evaluating data and treating data, we're going to see more and more automation come up, right? When it comes to how do we experiment, how do we plan, conduct, and analyze online experiments, how do you build visualizations? The more self-service that become, the more ubiquitous that become, you're going to have a role of governance behind it. And yes, it will take some time. Product analysts, data scientists, they will continue to build and bring insights and question these insights and reframe them, generating insights and interpreting results. I think that's a very important aspect. There will be still the role of interpretation, but the role of governance around the process of, let's say, controllership. My manager and I, we talk a lot about being the custodians of it. That is, I think, one way to frame it. How these roles might evolve as the technology around product development life cycle evolves, as the roles evolve, as the knowledge that we have about what works, what doesn't evolve. There will be this role of the custodian, of the governance, of someone in the governance position around data, around analytics, around the process of building things itself.
Interesting. The more complex the data becomes, and the more that data is able to automate many of the questions that might have been asked previously, the more the human is able to focus on other questions, always questioning around interpretation. And then once we have frameworks in place for governance, it's then about being the custodian to make sure that data is delivering in the right ways.
Yes, I would say I think that's how I can put it with the information, the knowledge, and the experience that I have today. Ask me again in 6 months, I might have changed opinions, or again, we might see things evolve in a different direction, where actually we don't want more automation. We actually want more human intervention in the process, so that we can leverage insights that technology cannot get to yet, right? So that we cannot disregard the ability of the human mind to find patterns, to draw conclusions that no machine learning algorithm can do yet, right? I think we're very good at identifying cats and flying rockets, and to some point driving cars, but drawing specific conclusions, or as we say in analytics, right, asking counterfactual questions, which are basically the abstract questions of what if no machine learning model known to the mass markets, and that's what I include myself, has yet the ability to ask what would have happened if we hadn't done this. This is a question that only we as humans can frame and seek to answer, right? There will still be this role that we put as a questioning party will still be very present.
The theme I've got throughout the whole of this is always to be questioning things. And I like the fact that you say, come back in 6 months and my thinking might be different. Probably as it should be, right? Your thinking would have evolved as time has passed.
Yeah, and I think that's an important takeaway for any data and product development professional out there. If I could give one recommendation, is this one that don't settle on a belief system too early, or don't hold on to it for a long time. Reevaluate your belief system constantly, because what you have learned 2 years ago or 6 months ago might not apply anymore. And that's where you learn, and that's where you grow, and that's where you are able to achieve novelty, right? In an authentic way, is by revisiting your belief system regularly. I wouldn't say frequently, because it implies more, but regularly, and whenever you feel that you have a question that you don't really know how to answer, try a different perspective.
Great. I would have finished with our final advice question that we like to ask leadership professionals such as you.
Sorry.
No, this is fantastic. You've walked right into the trap. So as I took from there, don't settle for, so we're talking about analytics professionals for the most part. And throughout this conversation, we've talked about questioning everything you do and why you do it. Have that scientific mindset. And you've also just shared with us, don't settle on a belief system too early, and not frequently, but regularly review this systems evolve and so should your thinking. Did I capture that right? Or is there anything else that you might plug into that?
Right on the spot.
Awesome. Oh, fantastic. Rodolfo, you've given so much today. I just want to say thanks very much for your time and your insights today. And I would encourage anybody who's watching or listening and has more questions about how to continue to evolve as a data analytics professional, or even at leadership level where you want to reconsider how you're delivering process as a leader of data, to reach out to us, comment, question. Don't be afraid. It's how us being a part of this data community is how we would like to help evolve that data community. So yeah, please reach out to us.
Definitely. And if I can say, that would be the perfect opportunity for me to also revisit my belief system in regards to everything that I just shared today. There must be perspectives out there that I haven't seen or met yet. So I would love to enter a discussion with anyone who feels
fantastic.
like it.
Well, I will go another step and try to encourage some people to give their thoughts then. Awesome. Rodolfo, finally, thanks very much for your time again. And,
thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, have a fantastic weekend as well.
So you. Bye, everybody.
Cheers. Ciao, ciao.